Hi
I think we're
guys,
live.
I think we are finally. Boy, oh boy, the evening we have had. Come on in. We'll give a few minutes for folks to join and then we'll get started. We appreciate your patience and am very sorry for all of the technical challenges we had tonight. And I appreciate Dr. Weili Gray and her patience in dealing with all of this technology too. So we're just gonna give a couple more minutes. Come on in. Welcome to our first Facebook Live. We're so excited to be here. Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. It is my pleasure this evening to have my friend, Dr. Weili Gray, join us here for our first um, Level Up Lady Doc Live. So welcome, Lady Docs. And Weili, I have to tell you that it is so fitting that you should be the first guest. Weili and I met about a year ago. We're in a coaching group together. And when you talked about your life planning, I thought this is perfect. You know, like we are so much in alignment with our missions. So it's very fitting that you should be the first guest here today.
Oh, I'm so honored. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I love what you're doing here with Lady Docs. I think, women physicians really could use all the support that we can get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Dr. Weili Gray, and then we'll get started. Um, so Dr. Weili Gray is a board certified sleep and integrative and lifestyle medicine physician. She practices in Vermont. She's also a registered life planner and the founder of Dare to Dream Physician, where she offers life planning and hosts a weekly podcast. So tell us, Dr. Gray, what is Dare to Dream Physician?
Ooh. So Dare to Dream Physician is my solution to the what I think is a lot of sort of like confusion and overwhelm and suffering that physicians in general have. When we think about the person who we were when we applied to medical school, like think back to, what drove you to apply for this crazy journey, that's for most people like 10 years long between pre-med, med school, and residency, and even fellowship training. And what was our life mission? Like I think back to the essay that I wrote for medical school, and we're physicians are an amazing bunch of people, and we have this we have the heart, we have the brain, we have the desire to help. And so then we go through this very rigorous training process, and then after what feels like forever, we're finally done. And when we're done, we almost have an identity crisis, like almost at the start, because we kind of go in, wanting to sort of help people and save the world. And then when we're done, we just, we're now looking at contracts, and we're talking with CEOs, and it's sort of like a totally different world than what we're used to, and sort of the reasons why we apply for medical school. And which is, I'm not saying that it's a bad, those are important life skills, but I also, sometimes we can get kind of caught up in the sort of the daily grind, the mundane stuff, the number crunching, the feeling like we have to be more productive, like making more RVUs. And so what Dare to Dream Physician tries to solve is to help physicians really realize, okay, yes, there are these mundane things in life, and there are things that we have to do in our daily life as a physician, but we can't forget who we really are, what's most meaningful to us, what makes our life worth living. And nobody is going to help us realize those things and live those things more than ourselves. So it's really to try to help physicians connect back to their most meaningful part of who they are, and to start living it as soon as possible, not in 20 or 30 years when we retire, but to do it as soon as possible, to do it now.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. One of my life sayings is you only get one life. And so we want to make the most of the one life that we have. Is there any one event that kind of pushed you into this kind of field of study, or helped you to develop this as a passion?
Oh, it's such a good question. So this was about now a little bit over a year ago. Like a lot of physicians, I felt like I was having living my dream job, living my dream life in a way. And then COVID came, and then, more changes started happening at work. And all of a sudden, this dream job that I felt I had as a physician was sort of crumbling and sort of deconstructing itself in front of my eyes. And I felt hopeless. I felt like, gosh, what do I do? I mean, I just turned 40 years old at the time, and I live in a rural area. My whole family moved to this area for my job, and they really didn't want to move again because we're kind of tired of moving. Internship, residency, it's sort of like we're done with that. And so I told my husband, like, gosh, things aren't going that well at work. I love what I do as a physician. I love my patients, but there's a lot of other stuff that's, really weighing heavily on me. And he's like, and I'm like, do you want to move? He's like, no, I don't want to move. And I said, I understand. I actually don't really want to move either. And so I had this moment when I was like, even if we did move, and even if I did find like the next, what I think is a good physician job, well, how long is that going to last, right? Like I was, at the time I had been at my job for about 5 years. Am I going to move in that again in 3 years? What is this, what my life is going to be like, looking, for one thing to the next thing and sort of not having an anchor. And so I actually was in a lot of pain at the time, and like existential pain. And then I was looking for, I didn't really acknowledge it to myself, but I was looking for like a way out. I was like, I need to get rid of this pain. Like maybe as much as I like, seeing patients, but, I'm not going to give up my whole life just so I can see patients and have like a miserable experience. And so I started looking at other ways. I was like, is everybody, I'm thinking to myself, I can learn new stuff. If you want me to learn new stuff, I'll learn new stuff. I don't want to be stuck, but I did feel stuck. So I was looking at other options, and I thought to myself, what else am I good at? I mean, we spend so much time becoming physicians that a lot of our hobbies and a lot of other interests sort of fall by the wayside. And the one thing that I was fairly good at, was after finishing my fellowship, I looked into like how to manage my money, like personal finance. So I thought maybe I could become a financial planner. Like maybe I could, just look into this. They don't seem to be weighed down by these big hospital systems and all this bureaucracy. And so
Right.
I started there. And then I came across something called life planning. And I thought, well, that sounds really interesting, because if I'm going to be a financial planner, I'm going to have to be like a really impactful financial planner. Like I'm there to help people, change their life through managing their money. So like how do I do that? Because most financial planners, that I know aren't necessarily doing that. So I researched, and that's actually how I found life planning. Life planning is sort of a branch off of financial planning. And the question, sort of the founder of the life planning movement, his name is George Kinder. The question he always had was, okay, well, why are you doing these things? So money is important, but how do we make this money work for your life? Right. So that's sort of like when he worked with clients in tax planning and financial planning, these are the types of questions that he asked. And so that's sort of how it started, but then it evolved. And George Kinder, the founder of life planning, is also a mindfulness practitioner. He's just a very interesting human being. He's also a poet and, has other creative ventures. And so he sort of started applying this life planning process to people that would come through the door for financial planning. So I took a a life planning workshop just because I was really curious. It was the first workshop that I paid for that wasn't a CME fund. And so I was really motivated to get the most out of it because it was like $1,000, I remember correctly. And so I showed up, and they asked, they're like, does anyone want to be like a volunteer to get life planned? And I'm like, well, I paid $1,000, I better get something. So
Why not, right?
I got life planning, right? So in front of these, and this was in the middle of COVID, the pandemic, and on Zoom, like with like 20 plus other strangers in the room who were mostly financial planners, I got I got life planning live, and it totally changed my life. So that's it and they're like not the most, they're very simple questions. Some of the questions that we ask in life planning is, well, what's important to you? Why is that important to you? What's what do you really want to do? Like, if you didn't have to worry about money, or if you didn't have to worry about maybe what other people think of you, what do you really want to, what is it that you really want? And it's just really not being judgmental and really asking sincerely, and then listening. That process, it's so simple, but it was, it was probably like a 20-30 minute session, and it totally changed my life. I actually started crying on Zoom, and I'm not usually a crier. So, just because I never had a chance.
About it? What about it was so impactful that that you cried in front of 20 strangers, and that you decided to become a life planner yourself? What was it about those questions? What resonated with you?
Yeah. So it was one, it was the chance to just speak out loud the things that were really important to me. And I think most of us sort of maybe feel like we intuitively know, like most of us will probably say, okay, family is really important to me, my being like secure, knowing I have housing and food and all those things. But the life planning process helps us, kind of go even a little bit beyond, go a little bit deeper. And the questions are very simple, but just being kind of present, and even acknowledging the feelings that come up. And then sometimes, like for me, one of the things that came up was, I'm an only child, and my parents live, 12 hours away from where I live. And like, yeah, it was obvious to me that my parents are important to me, but I really didn't think in my head, I'm like, it's almost impossible for me to juggle my physician job, my, child rearing, everything that I have to do, and somehow sort of be there for my parents, especially as they get older. And that just like, it just kind of hit me when it was kind of the end of one exercise, and I just kind of just said it. And I actually like just almost felt these feelings came up, and I never really gave myself even like the time or the space to like reflect on these things. So and the other thing is, I think it's scary. It's scary saying that things are important, that are important to us, because what if we don't get them? What if we don't honor them? It's almost like it's very vulnerable. But if we sort of give into the discomfort and be really honest with ourselves, and being in a safe environment that allows us to voice these things, to even go beyond what we think are the things that we know, it's almost like it hits your soul. so I think that's what made it very very impactful.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I actually went through a process where I was in a workshop, and we talked about our priorities, what was important to us, and we wrote it down. And then we looked at how we spent our time, and we looked at whether or not the way we spent our time was aligned with our priorities. And that was like eye-opening, but the thing I think about medicine is one of my mentors used to say that medicine was a jealous mistress, that medicine takes everything. And so you don't even, have the opportunity to really even think about how you're spending your time, because medicine's trying to take it all. And so, just fighting that battle of learning to recognize what really matters to you, and prioritizing yourself and your self-affirmed priorities, I think is really impactful and really key to
It,
beginning to have a life that you want.
that is so true. And I felt this way for so many years. Really resonated with what you said, in that I literally almost felt like I was like ahead. Like I was just like, I didn't almost feel like I didn't exist. I was kind of there to respond to everybody's needs. And in a
Yeah.
way, that is the heart of a physician. Like we want to help, and so, like we want to give, like we're generous people. But I just kind of felt like, okay, like I never carved any space for myself, so like much less ask like what I actually thought it was important, because of course, like, my family, my kids, all of those things were important. But you're right, I never even took that 10 minutes. Like I could take 10 minutes to just, do a little bit of exercise every day, and I didn't do that for years. And so I kind of felt like I was just reactive. Like, if my kid is hungry, okay, I have to go make food for them. My
Yeah.
husband has to go somewhere, okay, I'm gonna hold down the fort at home. And so it was sort of like we call there's a term I really like, the tyranny of the urgent. Like something always comes up, right? It's a patient
Yeah.
message, a patient
Yeah.
need, or someone in the family. So, and it was like my needs were the least urgent. They were important, but they weren't like urgent to me at the time. And so at the end of the day, none of those needs really got met because I didn't make space for them. And the beautiful thing is, if we give ourselves the time and the space and the permission to just reflect, like 5 minutes, like what is it that's important, what is it that I need right now, and then if we spend another 10 minutes trying to meet that need, we are going to be so much better in our roles as a physician, as a mom, as a wife. It's funny it works that way, but that is, from my experience, after I've had my transformation, like how what a difference that is.
Can you tell us a little bit about the difference? What do you feel now? What do you see now? How has your life changed? Since you started applying these life planning principles.
So I think one thing is just giving myself a little bit more space every day to feel. I think I didn't even give myself the space to feel, because medicine is a very stoic culture. I grew up in a household that's also very stoic, and so it was just like, okay, let me get this done. It was very task, like my mindset was very task oriented. And then after I've had my growth experience, I've just become more in tune with, like, well, what is it that I really feel about this? Because a lot of things are being asked of us every day, and it's our responsibility to sort of check in with ourselves and say, is that thing that I'm adding to my plate, is that going to make me burn out? Is that, is this sustainable? And because people will ask you things, or your organization will ask you to take on more things. And I mean, in a way, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But if we don't do the work on ourselves and just give us that little space to pause, it's like, okay, you want me to do this? Okay, let me think about it. I have to reflect. I can't tell you right now. And so just giving that space. And then I actually, in the way that I interact with my at work, I'm an employed physician, and by the way, I state that, all the mind drama I had about how much suffering I was as a physician, a year ago, I'm at the same exact place. Like I didn't change my job. I'm doing the same job, but I'm much more engaged and happier when I go to work. And I'm also, and it sounds cliche, but I do advocate for myself. I not only advocate for myself, but I advocate for others. I found that when I learn how to advocate for myself better, I actually advocate for others, because when I say, hey, this thing about the EMR, this is really not efficient and it's really not working out, nobody knew about that because we're the only ones who use the EMR, right? Like the people who maybe chose the EMR and paid for the EMR at my hospital, they don't use it. So so it's when I speak up, you know, someone else might hear me and then they're saying, oh yeah, you know, yes, that part about the EMR, that is really annoying where we have to click like, you know, 20 clicks to get through one thing. And
Yeah.
so just knowing how to verbalize my needs, and then knowing and I do that because I listen to myself now. Now I'm like, ooh, like that little bit of feeling inside where it's like uncomfortable, like maybe that means something. Maybe I shouldn't just say yes and just pause. Like, is this aligned with what my life goals are? Is this aligned with what is really important to me? And sometimes it is. I've been asked to do things that take up more time that was a little stressful when I heard about it, but it aligned with what I believed in. And so I took it, and, you know, and I'm glad I did.
So it sounds like you feel more empowered now. You know, that you're empowered to speak up for yourself and you're empowered to help your fellow physicians, but all of that happened still in the same environment. So the job didn't change, but you changed through life planning.
Absolutely.
That sound
Absolutely.
about
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And
Okay. So
yeah. And I think,
no, go ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say, when you sort of resonate with the things that are really important to you, like what is the legacy that you want to leave behind, it actually becomes much easier to be more bold at work or, you know, wherever in your life, because you're like, what do I have to lose, right? This is my one and only life, like you're saying. And if this is something I feel so passionate about, what do I have to lose to put myself on a limb and just, you know, make this statement or make this ask? And so I think that is the value of life planning, the value of reflecting on what's important to us and what we really want, not just tomorrow but in our whole life, and then start being intentional about that every single day.
So how do you keep that in front of you? I mean, you know, because sometimes we'll do this mindset stuff, and you know, you'll think about it for a few days, and then it kind of just fizzles out. How do you build that muscle?
That is such a good question. So, and I think it may be different for everybody, but I'll tell you what I've found. So part of it is just exploring. So when I did my life plan, one of the things that I actually just wanted desperately was just to be feel at peace when I'm with my family. Because what happened was, like, my brain was in so many places. I had such a big to-do list in my head from all my different roles that I couldn't enjoy myself even when I was technically off at home with my kids. Like, I would snap on my kids and I'm like, well, I don't want to snap with them. I want to enjoy my time with them, but I just didn't know how to do it. And what I found that, so I was desperate, like when I learned that this is not my vision, like my vision is maybe really the opposite of what I'm living right now in terms of that interaction. I started just being really open-minded. I'm like, what do I need to do? How do I help myself? And so I've got, you know, I've had personal life coaching. I've had like, you know, negotiation coaching. I've had like personal athletic trainers, so, you know, more for like my health, like a running coach. And so everything, like, I basically explored, and there were some things where I'm like, I mean, that was nice, I learned something, but I don't think I need to, you know, keep doing this thing. And there are other things that stuck. So for me, there's like and I'm not a big routine person, so like, I'm saying this with the caveat, like, if you're not a routine person, it's okay. You don't have to be a routine person. But I have found I started running like maybe 6 months ago, and I have found that has been really helpful for me. And I don't run every day, but I try to do 3-4 days a week. And I started off with really, like, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then now I'm sort of doing more than that. I'm doing probably closer to an hour each time. But I feel like that's really good for my sanity. And when I come home, and I actually had to make space to run, because I'm like, I didn't know where I would fit this in, but then my husband was supportive. So, but when I notice, when I am away from my kids and I do running and I come back, I am much better, like in terms of being able to just be present and be calm as a mom to them. Like, I'm happy to make whatever lunch they need when I come back from running.
Yeah.
But before, it was much harder. So just making space for my own wellness, like making, and meditation is another thing that I picked up. I'm not a expert meditator by any means, but I use the app, and 5 minutes of meditation, just little things that sort of pause in my day that help me connect with, like, yes, remember this was really important to you. And then that quiet moment kind of helped me reconnect to that.
Wow. So we're wrapping up a little bit here just because we don't want to take up too much of your time tonight or the ladies' time, and acknowledging that we were running behind anyway. What's one thing that you would say to a fellow female physician? What would be the most impactful thing that they could do to get a win today or tomorrow? If there was one thing that you would ask of them or challenge them to do.
Wow. So that's a great question. I I would challenge them to try a reflective exercise in life planning. And there are three questions in life planning that I've spoken about before, but I'll just share one with you guys and with you ladies. And it's this is sort of like, this is the deepest one, by the way, so it's a little bit challenging, so bear with me. But this is how this question goes. So your doctor shocks you with the news that you have only 1 day left to live. Notice the feelings that arise as you confront your mortality. And I want you ladies to ask yourselves, what did I miss? Who did I not get to be? What did I not get to do? And so this reflective exercise is really, I mean, some people think it's depressing. And in a way, it's supposed to sort of hit us in the gut because, wow, if you were told that you only have 24 hours left to live. And the other part of the question is, this is a reflection, right? So we're not making a to-do list because we're doers here. So we're trying, like, oh, I got to get my will prepared and I got to get all this. So I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about, let's just reflect back on your life, right? If you only have 24 hours left right now to live, who did you not get to be? And what did you miss? What would what did you not get to do? And think about those things, and reflect on those, because for all of us, we don't know when we're going to die. Hopefully it's not going to be a long time. Hopefully we all live till we're 100 or more. But also, we're responsible for our own lives, right? So we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And whatever it is that's really important to you and being who you are, and the things that you do, think about those things, and don't forget about them. Try to do even a little piece. Try to just, if you're like, wow, I would love to, I'm just going to make something up, be an artist, and here we are, we're physicians. Well, if that's what you really care about, maybe just do a little bit of art, right? So that you're in touch with the things that you really care about. That's in addition to what you do as a physician. So that would be my take home.
Wow. I think I find that question it's a little scary, a little scary to think about, but really inspirational, because it makes me think, okay, I guess I better get my act together and start doing some of these things, because the last thing we want to do is get to the end of our life and have a bunch of regrets, and think about all the things that we didn't get to do, because why didn't we get to do them? What's stopping us, right? We're unstoppable. We could do anything
Exactly.
that we decide we're going to do. So, I think it, like I said, for me, I find it inspirational. Like, okay, let's make a decision to get some of this stuff done, to make it a priority, to make ourselves a priority. Let's see, I'm going to check the chat. You guys have any questions? If you have questions, please put them in the chat. We'll stay on for a few more minutes. And then Dr. Weili is part of Level Up Lady Doc. We're happy to have her in the group. So, you can find her in Level Up, but where else can we find you, Dr. Weili?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I have a podcast. It's called Dare to Dream Physician, and it's on all podcast apps. So if you like the material we talked about today, and it's actually my podcast is mostly an interview show. So I talk to other physicians and sort of about the things that are important to them, and ask them for advice on how we can help physicians live their dream life. So it's super inspirational. I've learned so much from my guests. So please check out my podcast. And also, you can go to my website, daretodreamphysician.com. I do one-on-one life planning. I love interacting with people one-on-one, and that's sort of where I felt like I got the most impact when I was doing my life planning. And so I'm happy to do one-on-one life planning with any of our female physicians, all physicians really. And I'm also on social media, so you can follow me at Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Weili Gray, I thank you so much for joining me tonight. Again, I appreciate your patience. And I just, like I told you before, I was so excited to meet you. I'm so happy to have you as a part of my tribe and a part of my journey. Thank you for joining Level Up, and thank you for coming tonight. Like I said, guys, if you have questions, you can post them in the chat. If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, and ask your questions. I'll get them to Dr. Weili, and I'm sure she will answer them for us. So I thank you guys for joining us tonight. If you're watching the replay, hey, good to see you too. And if there are future topics that you guys want to hear about, we're going to be doing Level Up Live periodically. I haven't decided on a set day and time just yet, but we're going to be talking to other phenomenal docs like Dr. Weili Gray. And if there are other topics that you want to hear about, post them so that I can find someone, if I don't already know someone who could talk about it, so I can find someone just to help us all level up so that we can make the most of this one life we have. Thank you and good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.